Hi everybody, Laura here with a surprisingly simple interactive card. It features the updated version of the amazing All-Star High Top Die-namics by Lena Lamb. It looks like a regular card, so I left a little message inside to prompt the receiver to activate the mechanism. It would make more sense if it said pull on the left lace or thread, but I wanted to take advantage of one of the sentiments from the matching stamp set Be Original, which I partially stamped inside. As you can see, when we pull on the threads, different messages appear in the little circular window. I saw this mechanism on a Biedermeier movable card from the 19th century and thought it would be fun to use with these sneakers. I started by die cutting 2 complete sets of them and an extra shoe in electric red cardstock. It's not really necessary, but I like to layer die cuts in such a manner that there are no extra outlines showing. You'll see what I mean in a moment. I've backed all of the embellishments with score tape to make it easier to assemble everything. Now I'm using some washi tape to adhere 2 of the shoes together so that I can die cut the hole in the exact same spot. Of course, the high quality of all My Favorite Things dies allows us to cut 2 layers of heavyweight cardstock with no problem at all. Let's carefully peel off the washi tape and move on. Now we can grab the 3rd shoe and adhere the white sole to it. After that we can plan the layout of the card. An important fact to know at this moment is that the further apart the top holes or mechanism holes are from each other, the more the rotating circle moves, allowing us to stamp more messages on it. Here I'm just figuring out how I'm going to layer the sneakers, and once I've decided, I'm adhering the die to the shoe that's going to be on the bottom with some washi tape, so that I can run it through my die cutting machine. As I said in the beginning, this step isn't really necessary. The layering just looks more realistic. But before we start assembling everything, we need a main panel with a hole. I don't like to run a panel with faux stitching through my die cutting machine if I don't have to, because it flattens out the design. So instead I use the circle die to first cut the hole in a piece of Kraft cardstock, and now I'm going to use the largest die from the A2 stitched rectangle STAX set 1 Die-namics to cut the panel. We don't want any of the Kraft cardstock to show through the hole, so we can just use a marker to color the edges of it. Now we can finally assemble the main panel, and to make it easier, I temporarily adhered the sneakers together with some washi tape. That way I can treat them as a single piece, apply liquid adhesive to the back of it, and glue it in place. However, I totally forgot to add the laces to the left sneaker. It would have definitely been easier to do beforehand, but luckily the solution is easy. I just use a piercing tool to make holes through the panel, and then after adhering the end of the thread with some tape on the back of the panel, I can pull some thick sewing thread through them with the help of a needle. This totally reminds me of some craft that I did in kindergarten in my native Finland. It's actually easy and a lot of fun to sew through paper. And when I'm done, just in case, I'll cover the thread with some micropore tape so that the wheel doesn't catch on the stitches. Assembling the sneakers is a lot of fun, but it's very easy, so I'll just jump ahead and show you how I use my MISTI to partially stamp a sentiment. First, I stamp the complete sentiment on a piece of thin printer paper, and then I cut out the word that I'm interested in. I then stamp through that thin mask that I just created on my panel. I use the same technique for partially stamping critters, or very recently to separate the Pure Innocence painter's arm from her body to create an interactive card. Okay, so our main panel is almost finished. We just need to glue the right sneaker in its place and use a piercing tool to punch 2 holes for our mechanism string, which is going to make the wheel rotate. Here are all of the elements that we need to finish the card. Before we continue, let me show you how I used letters from the stitched banner alphabet Die-namics to finish the phrase on the inside of the card base. For the mechanism, I used the notched wheel from the Peekaboo Wheel Dynamics set that already has a hole in the center of it and measures around 4 inches in diameter. Here I'm placing it in the corner of a second panel and piercing a hole through it so that I can later attach it with a brad. Now we need to make 2 holes in the circle. Mine are about 1/2 inch apart. We're going to use them to attach the thread. But first, let's link the wheel to the second panel with a small brad. It shouldn't be too tight so that it can easily rotate. Next, we need some more thread and a needle to push it through the hole located to the right on the main panel, then through the right hole on the wheel, then back up through the left hole on the wheel, and out through the left hole on the panel. It's really more complicated to describe than to do. We can now get rid of the needle and open the brad so that we can better access the wheel, because we now need to attach the thread to the wheel. Just be careful not to twist the threads and make a mess. I only used tape, but a drop of strong liquid glue and then tape would be even better, just in case somebody pulls on the threads too hard. Okay, let's link the circle to the back panel once more, and next we can temporarily adhere the panels with some washi tape in the corners. Now we can use a pencil to trace circles on the wheel while carefully pulling on the threads. In my prototype, the sneakers were further apart from each other, so there was room for 4 circles, but in this version only 3 will fit next to each other. I'm gluing a blue star in the first visible window, and then I'm going to lift the main panel so that I can stamp the circular sentiments in the 2 other circles. Take your time when centering the stamps. They are quite small, so it isn't easy to do, although you can always stain them with some STAX ink to make the text more visible. And don't forget to erase the pencil marks after stamping. For the last sentiment, I did some partial stamping to substitute the star for a little red heart cut with one of the dies from the bundle of baby clothes Die-namics. Okay, we're almost done. We just need to add some thin foam tape to our back panel and adhere the 2 together. Then, as an optional step, we can use a pair of scissors to trim some of it so that it doesn't show even when looking at the card from the side. Let's add some double-sided tape to the back and adhere the whole thing to the card base. And that's it. The final step is to trim the threads a little bit, but first let's have a last look at the rotating thread mechanism in action. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, I will be happy to answer them. Do check out the description box for more info about the supplies and measurements. Bye bye, hasta la vista!